Sega.
Today we're here, we're going back to the 360 era. Really, this is a game that harkens back to the Sega Saturn, and it is Guardian Heroes by the vaunted, lauded, and treasured game studio. Treasured, this is one of those games that was on the Saturn that many talked about as one of the best in its genre. And it was ported over to the Xbox 360, particularly Xbox Live Arcade back in 2011 with upgraded graphics, remixed. A lot of the art assets were redone. And if you go back and look at the Genesis version, you'll definitely see some upgrades. It's really amazing to me how even just playing with this, that it looks so good nowadays, even playing on a game or playing a game that came out in really essentially 1996 for the first time, and then this remix came out in 2011, so you're talking about 13 years ago that this one came out. And it's one that really captures that 2D gameplay that we know of from like Final Fight and Streets of Rage and all of those. But one of the things I really like, and I think that's why it was talked about so much, is that transition between the different foreground, midground, and background, and back and forth to fight enemies. That was, especially in '96, was very unique gameplay for this style of game. And another thing that really made me want to pop in this game was the fact that it had local co-op. As you know, especially now, more and more games don't offer local co-op. They only offer online co-op. So it was really cool getting in this case with another player who pops in a little bit later from this, to play couch co-op, because it's something that I don't get a chance to do often, and especially for what seems to be a very simple beat 'em up, but has some complexity to it. And it's one that just is really fun to just turn on, dig into, and just start playing and just bashing around, figuring out the gameplay, utilizing different magic and attacks. And also, much like, say, traditional RPGs, getting different characters to play with you that are either those co-op characters or those that are controlled by the CPU in this case. So it's really cool. I will say I've played this game maybe once or twice before. I bought it a while ago when it was on sale, and it was not difficult to get into it, but you can't remember, how do I play this game, how do I do this, how do I do that, because we don't read manuals over here. So it's one of those things where you just kind of pop in and start playing around and figure out how things work. But it's pretty intuitive if you played these sort of 2D games before, to figure out how to play it and what does what. So I would say, just again, going back to a lot of these games holding up well, this is a game that I really had to ask is like an HD remake, because the graphics, while somewhat watercolor-ish at times, you can definitely tell that it was an upgrade over the Saturn version. That's before I even saw the Saturn version of the game, but it's definitely an upgrade. The graphics are crisp. They pop off the screen with the colors and also the detail as well. And it's an art style that didn't see really then, and you don't see really now, and that's very refreshing, because if you watch us, Brian and I, talk on the Checkpoint, a lot of games look alike. A lot of similar art styles, especially when you get to that anime sort of art style. They all look very similar, especially when you go into the JRPG realm. But this game just has uniqueness unto itself, and that lends into making it stand out as a 2D beat 'em up game. It's one that I see why, just from the outset, why it was so talked about back in the day as one of those hidden gems on the Sega Saturn, on a system that just honestly was kind of doomed to fail from the start, regardless of the, well, no, Sega did it to themselves by releasing 32X, and that's a whole nother video with regards to why the Saturn failed as miserably as it did. But for a long time, this is one of those games that was locked away on that system until this HD, I call it HD remix, happened back in 2011. So it's one of those games that is interesting because it's fairly later in the life cycle of the 360, because what the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 came out around 2013, if I remember correctly. So it's fairly late in the life cycle. So it's interesting. Even though it was just an Xbox Live arcade game, it still, it's fairly late in the cycle. But I guess it's fairly good because at that time they just started to really lift the limitation of Xbox Live arcade games, because they used to be very small games, and then around that time we started getting those ports of like those Dreamcast games and so on and so forth. So I guess it makes sense that this game would have come out then compared to earlier in the life cycle of the Xbox 360. I'm not sure if this received a port to PS3 at the time. I don't think so, looking at the Wikipedia, but I guess it's one of those things that was locked away on there. I'm not sure if it's still available for sale on the Xbox. I'm assuming it is. I gotta check and see if it still is, because I was backwards compatible if you own it already. But some of those games aren't for sale anymore. They're just accessible if you own them. Like the first Soul Calibur isn't available anymore, but if you do own it as part of your account, then you're still able to play it on your Xbox One and then Series systems as well. And one of the things I really enjoyed about this game is just that it gives you this mix of enemy styles. You think you jump in as this very sort of medieval sword and sorcery sort of gameplay, but then you get these sort of mechs as you're seeing here that you play, and as we progress, we'll see other types of enemies as well. Even have the supernatural aspect as far as skeleton soldiers, and the sword now has I'll say probably for all intents and purposes, as we see here, a golem type aspect. So it mirrors your moves, or you can control it. So this is another character that's non-playable, but basically attacks and does your bidding for you to protect you and your cadre of playmates here. So I do, again, that level up system, much like RPG, tree skills, that sort of thing. So that's here as well. So you can level up the different skill sets that you have based on the amount of points you get for how you do in a particular stage. And here we continue on with this, trying to figure it out. I said I could care less with the story. These sort of games, I don't care about the story. I just want to get in, play, beat them up, and get out. And it's one of those things where I'm sure it's all fine and good as far as the story is concerned, but I just don't care. I just want to play and smash things, which is what we're doing here, smashing. The added robotic golem sort of character, it adds a different feel to the game at this point. I didn't feel like it was a hard game to begin with, but when you have this character by your side and fighting with you, it doesn't feel like there's going to be a challenge to the game, and that may be just a poorly placed perception. But you have a big, strong character like that with a big sword fighting beside you, you tend to feel like you're invincible. And I think that's probably any game that you play where you have this sort of character. Even if you are playing as a character, you kind of feel invincible. Now, whether you are or not, that's something totally different, but definitely feeling invincible here. I do also, just with this stage, we're on stage 1, stage 2, and then we go to stage 3 in a little bit. I really enjoy the backgrounds. I enjoy all this going on in the background. You can tell the depth of that background as well, with the three different layers of the background. We're talking about past the 3 different foreground, mid-ground, and background that you can jump to as far as your play field. I think that this really sets, especially on a stage like this where it's dark and spooky, it sets a really good immersion aspect as far as I'm concerned. Again, that's even for a 2D fighting game like this. It's really fun to play, and there's a lot going on screen. I want to be able to get 4 players, and obviously this isn't something that I'm going to be able to play online. Actually, no, I should try, but I don't think I could. I think a lot of these servers are dead and gone now with the Xbox 360's closure and everything. Why is this guy? I feel like this guy's a vampire. Like the way he's talking, like the size of his mouth look like fangs. It's kind of weird. I don't know if he's supposed to be a vampire or not. We'll see more in the story. Well, not in this gameplay, but later on, as I play more in the game, we'll see if he's a vampire or not. But it just offers a really good experience, and it makes me glad that this sort of backwards compatibility still exists with these platforms, because with this transition to digital games, especially with the, let's say, real start of it, so as Xbox Live Arcade, but to have so many of those games backwards compatible instead of being locked to that system, which is now gone for all intents and purposes, it's good to be able to still go and purchase and play these sort of games so they're not lost to time. And one of the things I realized too, and while I didn't get this with Xbox Live Gold, recently I let my Game Pass membership lapse for a little bit. And one of the things I was always concerned about was what would happen to all the games I received via Xbox Live Gold over the years before they transitioned out. And one of the things that I noticed a while ago is that pretty much guaranteed 99.9% of the games that were given to you as part of Xbox Live Gold, there were 360 games and even Xbox games, those automatically transitioned to you owning them. So there was no issue with that. Now, the current gen games at the time in Xbox One games, they were always listed under Xbox Live Gold, and you needed to have your subscription to have them. Well, when you went to your library, it still said Xbox Live Gold, but now if you don't have your Xbox Game Pass subscription active, all those games are owned. So you own all those games. So my game library in total is about 400 plus games. And there's so many of those games I have never played before. So you're going to see a lot of those on Game Bytes coming soon. But with this, it's one that is just a fun game to play. And I think it's still available. If so, I'll let you know right here at the bottom if it's available and what it goes for if you own an Xbox system. But yeah, that's my take on Guardian Heroes. Make sure you check it out. It's a fun game.